Under the pale light of a fading sun, the village stretched calm and sleepy, roads made of dust and memory. Chickens scratched near old fences, and the distant rumble of a tractor spoke of another long workday ending. In that old village lived Ilya, once a skinny cheerful boy, now a grown man with tired hands. His palms were rough from years of gripping cold metal, fixing engines, pulling stubborn earth with plows. The house he lived in was the same one he grew up in, wooden, leaning slightly to the left, roof patched with whatever materials he could find. Life had not spoiled him, but he never complained. He worked, he helped neighbors, he cared for his aging parents, and that was enough for him. But years ago, when he was just 12, the world was full of innocence. That day stayed in his memory like a quiet flame, small, warm, almost forgotten, but never extinguished. He remembered the thin boy, the orphan the villagers barely paid attention to. Misha was his name. Sometimes he appeared near the store, sometimes by the river, wearing clothes a size too big, sleeves covering his small hands. No parents, no relatives, living in the orphanage at the edge of the village. People would throw him bread or a coin if they felt generous, but more often walked past. Ilya's father always told him, kindness is like a seed, you won't see the fruit tomorrow, but one day it returns. Ilya didn't fully understand then, but those words settled quietly in his heart. That evening, young Ilya walked home from school, pocket warm with a 50-ruble note. His father gave it to him in the morning, smiling through a tired face. For your notebooks, son. Don't lose it. Ilya planned to buy a new pen too. The old one leaked ink and stained his fingers. But near the store, he saw Misha sitting on the wooden step, rubbing his hands together, breath forming white clouds. You cold? Ilya asked. A bit, Misha answered, trying to grin though his lips were pale. Haven't eaten since yesterday. It's fine. I'll manage. Ilya hesitated. 50 rubles was a lot for a boy his age. Enough for notebooks, pen, and maybe candy if he was careful. His mother would scold him if he returned without school things. Yet, something inside him refused to walk past. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the note, felt its crisp edge between fingers. Misha watched, blinking, unbelieving. Ilya, that's too much, he whispered. Buy food, Ilya said, pressing the note into his palm. And something warm to drink. Misha stared at the money as if holding treasure. For a moment he couldn't speak, then looked up with wet eyes. Someday I'll return it, I promise. Ilya shrugged, embarrassed. Forget it. Just don't be hungry. He walked home lighter, though his pocket was empty. His mother sighed angrily, but his father just patted his shoulder with a proud smile. That was all. A small episode in a big life. Years washed over it like rain on old footprints. Time moved on. Childhood ended. Ilya grew, learned to repair tractors by watching his father and later by necessity. When his father's back started aching, Ilya took more work. The harvests weren't always good. Machinery broke more often than it worked. Some years they survived on potatoes and hope. There was no luxury, no fortune, only honest work under the sun. The village around him changed too. Many young people left for the city. Fields once golden with wheat turned to weeds. But Ilya stayed, loyal to land, to parents, to the quiet rhythm of rural life. Sometimes, when nights were long and engines refused to start, he wondered what became of Misha. Maybe he struggled somewhere, maybe he prospered, or maybe life swallowed him like so many forgotten souls. The promise of repayment faded into a distant childhood memory. One late evening, after a long day repairing a tractor engine that groaned like a wounded animal, Ilya sat on the doorstep, wiping oil from his fingers. Air smelled of earth and rain. His mother slept inside, coughing softly, her illness getting worse each winter. He wished he could afford better medicine. But wishes didn't fix roofs or pay bills. Then came the sound. Not the familiar rumble of village machines. This was smoother, deeper, an expensive engine, like those seen only in movies. Ilya frowned, standing slowly. A black car rolled down the dusty road, its polished body shining even under weak light. Neighbors peeked from windows, whispering. Children stopped playing to stare. The car turned and stopped right at Ilya's gate, engine purring like a predator at rest. The driver's door opened. A tall man stepped out. Elegant coat, leather shoes unsullied by mud, hair neat, posture confident. Everything about him felt foreign to this rural place. He looked at Ilya for a long moment, as if searching for a face lost in time. "Ilya?" he asked. "Yes," Ilya answered, cautious. "Do we know each other?" The man smiled, slow, emotional. "It's me, Mikhail. Or, Misha. From the orphanage." The name struck Ilya like thunder. The thin boy on the steps. The promise. 50 rubles. It all rushed back. But the man before him was worlds away from that shivering child. "Misha," Ilya repeated, stunned. "You changed. I barely recognized." Misha laughed softly. 20 years do that. His eyes softened. "May I come in?" Ilya opened the gate. Inside the yard, Misha looked around gently, touching the old fence, breathing the familiar village scent like returning to a past life. The car driver began unloading boxes, bags of food, fruit, sacks of sugar and flour, crates of medicine. Neighbors muttered in disbelief. "What is all this?" Ilya asked. "A beginning," Misha replied. He reached into his coat and handed Ilya an envelope. Thick, heavy. Ilya felt nervous opening it. Inside, money. More than he had held in his entire life. Enough to repair the roof, buy new machinery, treat his mother. "I don't understand," Ilya whispered. "Why?" Misha's gaze softened with memory. "Because once you gave me 50 rubles when I was starving. That small act showed me the world still had kindness. I survived because of it. I worked. Any job I could find. Cleaned floors, carried boxes. Saved every coin. Studied at night. Eventually, I started a business. It grew. Now I can finally repay what you gave me. Not the money. No. The hope." Ilya felt his throat tighten. He remembered that evening so clearly now. Him, a boy with warm pockets. Misha, hungry but proud. A gesture so small it had seemed insignificant. Yet here stood a man transformed by it. Strong, successful, grateful. "I never expected anything back," Ilya said quietly. "I forgot that day long ago." "But I didn't," Misha answered. His voice trembled slightly. "In my hardest moments, I remembered that someone cared. A stranger child shared the only money he had. That kept me going." Silence hung warm between them, filled with more meaning than words. "Let me help you now," Misha continued. "The house needs repair. The fields, new equipment. Your mother needs treatment. I've arranged everything. If you allow, tomorrow contractors will come. I also brought documents." He handed another folder. "I want to invest here, in the village. Create jobs. Build a small agricultural center. And I want you to be my partner." Ilya stared, stunned beyond breath. Partner. Him. A simple tractor driver. It felt unreal, like a dream too beautiful to believe. He looked at Misha. The boy from the past, now a man who carried success like armor and gratitude like treasure. "Misha. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Misha smiled. "That is enough." Emotion swelled in Ilya's chest until it hurt. He reached forward, and the two men, once children bound by a moment of compassion, embraced like brothers long separated. The village around watched silently, some with envy, others with awe, but mostly with wonder at how life returns what we plant. Inside the house, Ilya's mother awoke, hearing voices. Misha helped her sit, spoke to her softly, placing medicine on the table. Tears glistened in her old eyes when she learned who he was. She held his hand, whispering blessings only mothers know how to give. The room filled with warmth more healing than tablets. Later they sat outside again. Stars pricked the sky like tiny promises. Misha looked up, remembering years of hunger, struggle, cold nights working to survive. "When I was alone," he said quietly, "I often wished someone would say I mattered. You did that without words." Ilya listened, humbled. The wind carried the smell of wet soil, as if the earth itself breathed relief. Life, unpredictable and vast, had drawn a perfect circle. A car that never should have entered this forgotten village brought future with it. And all because long ago, a boy gave another boy 50 rubles. Sometimes kindness sleeps for decades, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And when it does, it returns like a miracle. Ilya barely slept that night. Even after Misha and his driver left to stay at the village guest house, after the neighbors stopped whispering behind fences, after his mother finally rested peacefully with medicine by her bedside, still Ilya lay awake staring at the wooden ceiling, hearing the echo of events replay in his mind. 20 years gone, and that little moment returned like a river flood, sweeping away everything old and tired. Happiness felt unreal, almost frightening. What if it vanished in the morning like a dream? He rose before dawn, as he always did, out of habit. The yard was wet with dew, grass sparkling silver. Rooster crowed in the neighbor's yard, a cow lowed softly. Everything was ordinary, except the thick envelope on the table, and the knowledge that life had shifted. He put on his worn boots and stepped outside. The world smelled fresh, full of promise. He touched the gate where the black car had stood, as if to prove to himself it was real. By sunrise, a new sound broke the village stillness, engines again, but different this time. A group of vehicles rolled down the dirt road. Trucks carrying building materials, workers in reflective vests, a shiny pickup with surveying tools. Villagers came out from houses, rubbing eyes, shocked. Ilya watched as Misha appeared among them, smiling like a man returning not as a guest but as someone who belonged. "You're early," Ilya said, surprised. "So are you," Misha replied, handing him a cup of hot coffee. "We have a big day." They stood together while workers unloaded lumber, cement sacks, metal beams, tiles. A foreman approached, greeting Misha respectfully. "To confirm, sir," he said, holding a clipboard, "house repair, roof replacement, new well pump, and electrical rewiring start today. And insulation, windows, and fencing," Misha added. "If possible, install the heating system by end of week. Winter is close." Foreman nodded and began shouting instructions. Hammers started knocking. Saw blades screeched. The yard transformed from quiet poverty to a bustling construction site. Ilya's mother stepped outside, astonished. She clutched her shawl around her thin shoulders. "Misha, you don't have to do so much," she said, voice breaking. Misha approached gently, placing a warm coat around her shoulders, the one he brought specially. "You sheltered me once with your kind words," he said. "Now let me shelter you from cold." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She hugged him like a lost son. The village gossiped louder than church bells. Some admired, some envied. Old neighbor Pavel muttered as he leaned on the fence, "People leave, forget. But this one came back rich." Huh. His tone carried disbelief mixed with admiration. Children ran around workers, laughing, lifting nails and handing them like treasures. One little girl tugged at Ilya's sleeve. "Uncle, is he a movie hero?" Ilya chuckled, patting her head. "Something like that." Later, Misha walked Ilya to the edge of the fields. The wheat swayed softly. For years, these lands struggled under broken tractors. Misha studied the horizon thoughtfully. "This place can feed many families," he said. "Your father and grandfather worked this soil. I want to restore it, modernize it. We can bring new machinery, irrigation systems, training. People won't have to leave for the city. They can build a future here." Ilya glanced at him. "You're talking like a dreamer." "Dreams are the first form of plans," Misha answered. "I learned that working nights loading cargo. The only thing that kept me going was a vision of something better." He sat on a rock, looking distant. "You know, after leaving the orphanage, life wasn't gentle. At 14 I washed dishes in a cafe for food scraps. Slept on the floor in a storeroom. At 16 I worked at a construction site. Hands blistered, bones aching. Sometimes I wanted to give up." His voice softened. "But I kept one memory. A boy giving me 50 rubles without hesitation. That moment convinced me that kindness exists. That maybe the world wasn't against me." Ilya listened silently, heart heavy with empathy. "You never had to return," he said. Misha smiled faintly. "But I wanted to. Gratitude is a seed too." They walked back to the village where the noise of work continued. New windows leaned against the wall, shiny glass reflecting morning light. Workers removed rotten boards from the roof. The old house looked naked, as if shedding its past. Ilya helped carry planks, unable to sit idle. Misha insisted he didn't need to, but Ilya shook his head. "How can I stand and watch others fix what I couldn't fix for years?" So they worked side by side. Misha in his expensive coat soon put aside, sleeves rolled, sweat on his forehead just like Ilya's. The two boys they once were could almost be seen behind their grown faces. At midday, the entire village smelled of fresh wood and boiled potatoes. Ilya's mother cooked for everyone, smiling more than she had in years. Workers ate gratefully, chatting with villagers like old friends. Even those who once walked past the orphan without noticing now praised Misha loudly, eager for a piece of his success. But Misha paid attention to none of the flattery. His eyes often rested on Ilya with genuine respect, not as a benefactor repaying charity, but as a friend. In the afternoon, a delivery truck arrived with something wrapped in canvas. Workers pulled off the cover, and gasps echoed through the yard. A new tractor. Red, polished, powerful. Its engine hummed like a beast ready for work. Ilya froze. Breath caught in his chest. He stepped forward slowly, touching the cool metal with trembling hands. This is too much. Misha shook his head. Not enough. This is your tool to bring life to these fields again. My gift is not pity, it's partnership. Children climbed its tires, laughing. Even old Pavel stared wide-eyed. Ilya turned to Misha. Why me? The world has many generous people who helped you along the way. Misha's gaze was steady. But you were the first. When you're starving, the first piece of bread is unforgettable. Evening descended slowly. Orange sky melted into purple. Workers packed up tools for the day. Tomorrow they'd return early. The house already had a new frame for the roof, fresh boards shining like bones of a reborn home. Lanterns lit the yard where two men sat on overturned crates, drinking tea. The night air was cool. Crickets chirped. In the distance dogs barked, then quieted. Somewhere, music played quietly from a neighbor's radio, old songs about love, labor, roads. Misha, Ilya began after a long silence. Do you ever feel angry at your past? At those who ignored you? Misha thought for a moment. I did. For many years I felt bitterness like fire. But anger burns energy you need for growing. One day I understood something. Resentment keeps you tied to the past. Gratitude opens the future. Ilya absorbed those words slowly, like warm tea sinking into tired bones. They talked for hours. About childhood, about lost days, about dreams neither of them told anyone before. Misha spoke about sleepless nights building his company, betrayals he endured, victories that tasted strange without people to share them with. Ilya spoke of his father's death, the heavy silence of fields in winter, the weight of responsibility when everyone depends on you. At one point Misha looked up at the starry sky. When I succeeded, I felt happy for a moment, he said. But happiness alone is not purpose. Purpose comes from connection. From returning light where darkness once was. Ilya nodded. Maybe kindness is like planting a tree. You don't sit in its shade the day you plant it. But someone will. They shared quiet understanding. Two lives that took different paths, now crossing again as if destiny drew them back into the same story. Night grew deeper. Most villagers slept. But from Ilya's yard came soft laughter, like the past healing itself. Then Misha reached into his bag and handed Ilya a small box. Inside lay a watch. Silver, elegant. This was my first expensive purchase years ago, Misha said. I kept it to remind myself where I came from. Now I want you to have it. A symbol of time, of how small moments shape entire lives. Ilya held it as if it were fragile. I have nothing equal to give in return. You already gave, Misha replied. Long ago. Their hands met in a firm shake. Not businesslike, but human, loyal. A breeze rustled the newly placed shingles on the roof. Somewhere a baby cried, then hushed. The village lived on, but something in its soul shifted. Hope returned, simple and strong. When they finally parted for the night, Ilya felt a strange warmth inside. Not just relief from poverty, nor pride of new equipment. It was deeper, the feeling that goodness given freely never dies. It circles through time, through people, through fate, until it returns multiplied. Inside the house, he placed the watch beside the envelope. He looked around. Walls old but with new future, mother sleeping peacefully, smell of fresh wood, sound of workers' laughter still lingering in air. He lay down on his bed. Moonlight through new window frames cast silver stripes across the floor like blessings. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would plow fields with the new tractor. Tomorrow the roof would be finished, walls insulated. Tomorrow the project for agricultural center would begin. Tomorrow the village would wake with hope. But tonight he allowed himself to simply feel grateful, for a childhood act he never expected to matter, for a friend he unknowingly saved, for a life that proved one truth beyond doubt. Sometimes the smallest kindness you give becomes the greatest miracle that returns. And the world, for once, felt perfectly right. The next morning rose with a golden light that filled the entire village like warm honey. Ilya woke to the rhythmic sound of hammers striking nails, not like an annoyance but like the beat of a new beginning. For the first time in many years, he woke smiling. He washed his face in cold water from the old basin, splashed his eyes, saw his reflection, older than he remembered, lines etched by labor and worry, yet today those lines seemed softer around the edges. Hope does strange things to a man. Outside, workers were already climbing the roof, passing planks, shouting directions. His mother was in the kitchen preparing breakfast for a small army as though she had spent her whole life feeding dozens instead of two. Misha arrived moments later, dressed simpler than yesterday, wearing ordinary boots that picked up dust like every villager. Ilya noticed how naturally he blended in. Wealth had not erased the boy inside him. They shared tea under the half-repaired roof, steam rising between them like morning mist. Misha talked of plans, irrigation systems, training programs for young villagers, connections with investors who trusted him blindly. He spoke of possibilities with the same ease others spoke of weather. What if it fails? Ilya asked quietly. Then we try again, Misha answered without hesitation. Failure is not a wall. It's a detour. Ilya liked this new version of Misha, not only successful but wise in a way only hardship can teach. He remembered that boy shivering in front of the store and felt unexpected pride. People aren't shaped by comfort. They are carved by difficulty. As the sun climbed higher, Misha walked toward the new tractor and ran his hand along the hood. You should start it, he said. It belongs to you now. Ilya climbed into the seat, feeling like a child riding a giant. The leather smelled new, the controls sleek compared to the old rattling machines he was used to. He turned the key. The engine roared to life, powerful, clean, promising. Workers paused to watch. Even those who doubted Ilya's future nodded with approval now. A machine like this could change everything. He took it for a slow drive around the field while Misha watched with a satisfied smile. The ground trembled beneath the wheels. Birds scattered into the sky. The world clicked into place. Sometimes happiness is the sound of an engine that starts without needing prayer. For days construction continued. The roof was replaced, walls insulated, new windows installed. A fresh fence stood strong where the old one sagged like tired shoulders. The house smelled of sawdust and new paint instead of damp and age. Each night, workers ate in Ilya's yard, sharing stories, laughter mixing with the aroma of soup and bread. Even Misha, despite status, sat cross-legged on old stools, not above anyone. One evening after work, Misha and Ilya took a walk toward the river, a place where they used to play as children. The path was lined with birches that whispered secrets to the wind. The river shimmered with the last light of sunset, surface rippling like silk. They sat on a fallen tree trunk. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't helped you that day? Ilya asked. Misha looked at the water long enough that Ilya thought he wouldn't answer. I think about it often, he finally said. Maybe I would have stolen bread out of hunger, maybe been beaten, maybe given up school, maybe I would have taken a darker path. Sometimes a tiny kindness is like a hand pulling you away from a cliff you didn't know you were standing on. Ilya nodded slowly. Life is strange. It is fairer than it first appears, Misha replied. It gives back what you put into it. Not immediately, not obviously, but eventually. They sat quietly, listening to frogs croak and water lap against stones. Moments like this didn't need words. The following week, the new agricultural center began forming. Trucks brought equipment, engineers measured land, maps spread across old tables like treasure charts. Young villagers, curious for work, gathered to ask questions. Misha interviewed them. Personally. What can you do? He asked a shy boy. Anything. Just give me a chance, the boy murmured. I know that feeling, Misha said gently. Come tomorrow. Word spread fast. Some villagers were grateful. Others whispered greedily, wondering if there was more to gain. A few muttered that Misha must want something. No one is generous without purpose. Human nature rarely believes in kindness without price. One man in particular, Victor, a local farm owner known more for drinking than working, watched Misha's project with sour jealousy. He had always controlled the village labor force. Workers came to him for seasonal jobs. Now they drifted toward Misha's center, leaving Victor with less power. His resentment simmered like spoiled milk. One night in the tavern, after too much vodka, he slammed his fist on the wooden table. That orphan boy thinks he is king now. Comes with fancy cars, gives gifts, and everyone bows like sheep. His friends laughed drunkenly, encouraging him. If he wants a fight, he'll get one, Victor snarled. No one takes what's mine. Trouble was brewing, though Ilya and Misha didn't know. They worked from dawn to dusk with hope, unaware that envy often wakes where kindness grows. The center opened in 2 months, a miracle pace. A large warehouse transformed into a training hall. New tractors lined one side like red horses. Storage silos rose above fields. A small lab tested soil quality. Young people learned modern farming techniques from experts Misha invited from the city. For the first time in decades, the village felt alive, buzzing with purpose. On opening day, half the village gathered. Children carried balloons. Old women wore best shawls. Misha gave a speech. Simple, heartfelt. This place is not mine, he said. It is ours. It will grow only if we grow together. He handed Ilya a symbolic key. Big, metal, old-fashioned. Cameras clicked. People clapped. Ilya stood there, overwhelmed. He, a simple tractor driver, was now co-owner of something extraordinary. After celebration, when most people left, Ilya found Misha standing alone behind the building, staring toward the fields with unreadable expression. You look troubled, Ilya said. Success is a heavy coat, Misha answered. It keeps you warm but weighs on your shoulders. You don't have to carry it alone, Ilya said. Misha smiled faintly. I know. That's why I came back. Their partnership deepened like roots intertwining under soil. They worked side by side, planning crop rotations, managing workers, negotiating with buyers. Misha taught Ilya business. Ilya taught Misha land. Each filled gaps in the other. But prosperity shines like a torch, and torches attract both hope and moths. One night, Victor and 2 of his men crept into the machinery lot. Moonlight glinted off metal. They poured sand into fuel tanks of 2 new tractors. Another they scratched with chains. Then they slashed tires and disappeared into darkness. By morning, 5 machines were damaged. Ilya stood staring, heart pounding. Rage flushed in him like fire. Who would do this? Misha knelt beside one tractor, fingertips tracing the sabotage. His face hardened, jaw clenched. That soft kindness in him shifted. Not gone, but armored. We will repair it, he said calmly. But we will not break like this machine. Let them test us. We stand stronger. Workers murmured angrily. Neighbors whispered names. All eyes pointed toward Victor. Later that evening, Victor arrived drunk, swaggering toward the yard. Nice tractors, he slurred. Shame if something worse happens. Ilya stepped forward, fists tight. Did you do it? Victor smirked. Proof. No. Then shut up. Tension lifted like storm clouds. Misha stepped between them, calm but firm. Victor, he said quietly, I didn't come to take anything from you. There's enough land and work for everyone. Join us instead of fighting us. Victor spat on the ground. I'll join the day your orphan luck runs out. He left wobbling down the road. Ilya cursed under his breath. We should call police. No, Misha said. Violence answered with violence becomes war. We win by building, not destroying. His restraint impressed Ilya, though it frustrated him too. Some battles cannot be won with kindness alone. But Misha held faith like armor. Over the next months, harvest came stronger than ever. Machines ran smooth. New irrigation channels brought water even in dry season. The village market grew. Traders came from neighboring districts to buy grain, honey, potatoes. People earned more, bought better clothes, fixed roofs, sent children to schools. A place that once survived began to live. One evening, after a long day, Ilya visited Misha's temporary house, a rental near the river. Light glowed warm from inside. He knocked and entered. Papers lay everywhere. Contracts, business proposals, maps of future expansion. Misha sat at the desk, rubbing tired eyes. You need rest, Ilya said. Misha looked up, smiling tiredly. Rest waits for those who stop dreaming. Ilya sat opposite him. You achieved so much. But something feels heavy in you. Misha was silent for a long time before speaking. Success is bright, Ilya. But it casts shadows. People expect more, demand more, envy more. Sometimes I wonder if I'm running forward to escape the past or chasing a future that never stops moving. Ilya understood perfectly. You don't have to prove anything anymore. Not to me. Not to anyone here. Misha's voice softened. Maybe I'm proving it to myself. Wind rustled curtains. Candle flame flickered. Ilya realized Misha's strength wasn't lack of pain. It was the ability to keep moving despite it. Time passed. Seasons changed. Fields turned gold. Snow came and melted. Village festivals grew larger. Children who once dreamed of leaving now dreamed of staying. Even Victor eventually came to Misha quietly, hat in hand, asking for work. Misha hired him without hesitation. That is kindness, Ilya whispered later. No, Misha replied. That is peace. Years later people would tell this story to children. How one boy gave 50 rubles, and the world changed. Years later, Ilya would stand on a hill overlooking fields of green, feeling wind carry the scent of harvest, knowing every leaf, every grain carried a trace of that old kindness. Years later, Misha would still visit his adopted village, though business took him far. But he never missed a season, never missed a sunrise over those fields, never forgot the boy who fed him when he was hungry. And sometimes, when evenings turned golden and quiet, they would sit together by the river, two men comfortable in silence, watching water flow like time, knowing they could have been strangers forever, but fate chose friendship. Because the smallest kindness can change a life. Because good deeds return multiplied. Because 50 rubles bought more than bread. It bought a future. And in that village, under endless sky, two lives grew like trees from a single seed of compassion, roots deep, branches wide, giving shade to everyone who came after.